Pasha Paroh, YNet7. Thank you for tuning. The replay. Trish McCabe, back in the house.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
So, we had a conversation. We did it. If you haven't seen the video that we did last, actually the videos, because there's one on her channel as well. I'll definitely put the link up so you can click on it, and this directly from the video, and check out her content. It's amazing, and we're gonna have some conversation and dialogue on her platform as well. So stay tuned for all that. And when we did the last video, we kind of were running a little waterfall that started with identity with me and Akpenny, and then we got into conformity. Then me and Trish did a spin-off of that, and then it led into the actual like school system getting involved and how that affects you. Yeah, and then post that meeting, we were actually having some conversation, and this amazing quote came up from us in that conversation, and it was basically once we rid ourselves of the label, we are no longer subject to the terms and conditions of the contract. The label itself, just like any other title, those that know me know that I don't do titles. You know what I mean? I don't have girlfriends. I don't do the quote unquote traditional friends, labeling, none of that stuff. I don't do titles. And this is really what's in the undercurrent of all that. And we decided we wanted to have a conversation with you. Trish and I wanted to have a conversation with you about it. So the terms and conditions are expectations, but expectations are based on the interpretations of others. And that's how we got to this point from the conformity factor. So Trish, in the prior videos, we were actually discussing you and some of the things you overcame in your life from being labeled as having a learning disability. So tell us, how did you overcome that label? And first of all, what was it like? Give a summary of the label itself, what it did to you, and then share with us how you overcame that label.
As we discussed in the other podcast about our education system and how limiting it is. When you're told something when you're little about yourself, mine was that I was slow. They couldn't figure it out, and then after a while they did, but it turns out that I have dyslexia. But either way, I was labeled stupid, and not only in school, but in other areas, in my family and socially and whatnot. It wasn't until about, I was around 50 that I started doing some inner work with a person, a healer, that basically pulled these women together, and we were going to do this group therapy type of thing of cutting the cord to something that no longer serves you. And she said, I want you all to think about what that is. And one day I was driving, I was thinking, and it just came to me, the stupid girl. And I mean, I had to pull over because it was just like, wow, oh my God. And in that moment of realization, I realized how that belief hindered me and affected every decision I made. Every decision, my romantic relationships, my jobs, my relationship with my family, even my music. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, it was very profound. Once I realized that truth, that was the beginning of digging deeper and getting to the root of that. And that's where education really played the biggest role in that belief. Because, we have to go to school every day, 5 days a week, and it's constantly being told you're you're not up to standard. So, but anyways, realizing that was when I made a lot of changes in my life, and decided to give the smart girl a chance that
Yes.
also was within me. So in letting go of the stupid girl, I made space for the smart girl to come in. And I mean, that profoundly affected my decision making moving forward from that moment. And accepting that I also had a smart girl, and it just was really profound. So I don't know if that answers the question. It's a little long-winded, but that's
Nah.
pretty much what happened. And ever since then, that was around 50, I'm 56 now. I've made a succession of very powerful, life-altering choices on the positive end ever since, and realized, oh my God, I'm actually really smart. And also, how we're taught what smart is in our educational system is inaccurate.
Mm. So I first of all, you know me, we're just gonna never get into the is it long-winded or not, because it's needed, it's necessary. You know, when you shorten something up or you condense it, that means stuff is left out, and we want the whole truth here, right? So what I like though, because what we're gonna title this one is The Lie of the Label. And in this discussion, we're basically going to be presenting the remedy. So, and that goes, and thank you again for sharing that. I know we know you, some of us know you covered it prior to, and for the rest that may be watching this video, maybe the first time they're seeing you, I just wanted you to go over that again and share that with them. So I really appreciate you taking the time to let people peer inside of you as such. And what you gave us there is a showcase of how if you're told a lie enough, you will actually begin to believe it.
And I wanted to ask about the contract part on that. I think people will not understand what you mean by that, the contract, and how we make these contracts unbeknownst to ourselves. Even though, I'm sorry, it came to me because I remember hearing people say this before I understood what it meant, contract factor of it.
Mm-hmm. So no worries. Like I do it all the time too, and it helps to get it out sometimes so you don't forget it. You'll hear me over here with some keystrokes. I'm taking notes to refer to as we go along. So that's a great thing to expand on, and tying it into the completely bridge it from where you were at earlier in what you gave us earlier. The belief, if we look into what you were saying, basically the belief hindered your own view, the belief given, right? The lie that was told to you about you, the belief, which actually means not to know, right? You can believe a stove is hot or cold, but you don't know, we don't know until we actually touch it. And even if you use a laser thermometer, you know, for those that want to be technical with me, that laser is still touching it to come back and send you the signal of how hot it really is. So what I'm getting at is the belief installed in you hindered your own belief in yourself about you. So then you got to a point, where you say, you know what? I got to give the smart girl a chance. And the key thing that you said in that is that the smart girl was already inside of you. Now, to tie that into the contract, when you have a label or a title, the contract portion of it is the terms and conditions. Thanks for asking that question. It's the terms and conditions of the title or label, which is the same issue in love.
Taking it into your spirit as truth about you, believing it. The belief is where you adhere to the contract.
Yes, you adhere to the terms of the contract. Sometimes even in this when it's entirely false, because your belief in the contract versus your belief in the truth, which like in love, You know, the word love means a different grade. So how does the lie of the label, you think, affect so many in the population with love?
Something that just keeps coming back to me is the thing about, you know, the smart girl versus the stupid girl. Well, not only is that not true, but also what we've been taught is smart is
Exactly.
inaccurate, you know, and
That's a
so
label
we
too,
also,
right?
yes, yes. And that needs revisions of what is considered smart. And there's many elements to being smart too. So, but I just felt like compelled to mention that because
Yeah.
I just, and not only did I accept that I wasn't smart, but like I was believing that lie about that level of what we consider smart. Anyways, so I don't know, just I felt compelled to bring that part of it up because for so long what I thought I wasn't smart. And then once I took in the smart person, I realized I was smart because what they're telling us is smart isn't actually true.
Right. Right. And I actually, you know what? We'll transition I'm glad you stayed here because I'm glad you stayed on this topic here because it made me think of something. So many people can relate to that on different levels. Like you don't have to be considered to have or being labeled a learning disability to feel like you're not as smart as you want to be or others or whatever it may be to that individual, right? Us, the individual. So what I'm getting at is let's take the label off on the lower end. Okay, let's just go with the middle class of smartness, if that's a thing. Okay, now them themselves are still going to be saying to themselves, well, I'm only here, so I need to go find an authority, right, in whatever topic it is. Maybe you need a lawyer, maybe you need counseling, right? But in reality, people always want to go external. And the key part that you brought up earlier was the smart girl was inside of you and you had to find it. So how does the labels make people fall in love, so to speak, with false idols, right? Give their power to others outside of them. Like even if you go to counseling, who gonna counsel you better than yourself? You know,
Oh my gosh.
like the
Oh
millionaire
my
that says this is how
God.
I got rich doesn't mean you're gonna get rich that way. You can
Yeah.
learn things from them, yes, but you may not be able to
Yeah.
emulate them. So how does the label factor, the lie of the label, even put people in poor positions from giving their power to some false idol externally, some false authority, instead of looking and finding it within, like you did?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. And when you give your power away to authority, um, you know, you're negating your own wisdom, your own knowledge, your own
Right.
power to be able to know it for yourself. And I actually have a small story I'll tell on that.
Good.
That really at the time it was astonishing, but I didn't really get it all together. But when I was in high school, I saw a counselor, and that counselor was giving classes for self-assertion for women and learning these techniques of how to assert yourself. And so after a year or so doing that, my therapist, who was also the teacher of the class, did something that I didn't like. And so I used the technique she taught me on her to show her that I'm standing
Right.
up for
Right.
myself. Well, she got really mad. I'm like, oh, wait a minute now. So you can teach me the rules, and now when I use them on you, it's somehow different.
You weren't supposed to learn.
Yeah, I wasn't. So wait, you're teaching me self-assertion class for women, and that's a good thing as long as I'm not asserting myself with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I called her out on it. I actually did. And we parted ways. How dare you? How dare you do that to your patients and your students? You should be honoring them when they But see, this is the thing. Then you get the hierarchy thing that they know more than you. When it's inaccurate. Yes, they may have more wisdom than you. You still have to treat your students and your patients with the same respect. You know, it just, that was the beginning of me going, oh, that was really bizarre. You know, it took me many years before I came back to that point. But yes, I love that. I think what it does, what we're talking about here, is it makes you question your own ability to know and give your power away to people, always looking outside of yourself for advice, for guidance, when really you're the only one that can do that, because it's your life. And whatever decision we make for ourselves is not going to affect them. It's going to affect us. They could say whatever, but they're not going to have to live with the consequences of the decision that we make. We are.
Exactly. And to take it to an extreme for example purposes, it's like someone telling you to use peanut butter. I'm making this all up completely, but let's just say to use peanut butter to whiten your teeth, but you're allergic to peanut butter. You know? So now when you go with the therapist thing that you were talking about and the counselor, and let's expand it even to doctor, attorney, and any other label / title, girlfriend, the wrong girlfriend or wife, or the wrong, for the women out there, the wrong boyfriend or husband, right? They're going to continue to want to assert the label on you so that they can remain in control, or in doctor, counselor, therapist, you know, the lawyer, they want to make sure they continue to get the revenue stream from you. And if you wake up tomorrow and say, I'm cured, guess what? They just lost a client. You know what I'm saying? So their incentive is to make sure that you still feel like there's something wrong, which is why I was saying in one of the other videos shortly ago, I have trust issues to a degree with every institute, individual, company, organization, nonprofit, whatever, that specialize or their main source of income feeds on what I want to describe it as. Say what?
The disadvantage.
Right. That feeds on someone being disadvantaged. Title, yeah, that's a great broad term. I appreciate it. So that feeds on a disadvantage, because are they really incentivized to rid the world of the situation? Just like Big Pharma, the money's in the treatment of the symptoms, not the cure. What do you think about that?
How about the cause? We have a world that's always looking for the cure when we're not addressing the cause.
Right.
So much of the time. One thing I want to say on this is I'm part of several narcissist abuse recovery groups, and I see people coming in these groups all the time and asking for advice. And what I do is I go in there and I say, if you had a loved one, a child, whatever, somebody you love dearly that was in your predicament, what advice would you give them? Because see, you're the one that's missing. When you're asking everybody for the advice, you're the one that's missing in that equation. So it gives them an opportunity to be objective and go, oh my God. And a few times the person would say, I would say this, that, and the other, and da, 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 da. Well, why aren't you saying that to yourself?
Exactly.
So you know the answer, but you're negating the power that you know the answer by asking somebody else for that answer that only you can do for yourself, because your standards, your bar, your boundaries are yours and yours alone. What is acceptable to one person may not be to another. So you're asking people for advice based on their life experience, not your own.
Exactly, which poses the danger of being misled and the opportunity for manipulation.
And even sometimes people have good intentions, because this is what we've been taught in society, to go look for advice instead of looking inward and looking in our own life. That we are the navigator, we are steering the boat.
And then the gaslighters come and say, oh, where'd you get that information from? The internet? And that is like a shaming technique of being a researcher, because like the internet is the modern library. And if anybody's done any research back in the day in a library, or even today, you know, they got a fiction section and a nonfiction section. And it's just up to you and your research skills and cross-referencing ability to determine the truth for you, you know?
Yes.
So it's like what, and then now let's move into love. You know, I think you know, love is like it's a noun. We've covered that on Why Net 7 a lot. And people are using it as a verb. When you talk about your narcissistic group counseling, how do you see that people are affected by the lie of the label when it comes to love and who they wind up with to get in those situations?
It's and this is where labels get really dangerous. And I'm saying a very unpopular thing. I'm seeing it across the internet where they say the narcissist. In these groups, they will talk about the narcissist, which to me needs to be changed to the abuser, because there's no such thing as a narcissist. The narcissism is a behavior that we all have expressed because it's a big part of our society and how we function. So anyways, we try to what I see them saying a lot, the narcissist this and the narcissist that, and they left me. And it's like it's inaccurate, because for one, if someone has harmed you, that's what you really want to talk about. The narcissist is not a type of a person. First of all, it's a behavior. But second of all, when it comes to love, when you want to talk about love and what real love truly is, it comes from a place of honoring and allowing. And I see a lot of these people say the narcissist left me and how dare he do this to me and da 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 da. And it's like, wait a minute. When you really love someone, you love them, even you want them to be happy. When you love somebody, you want them to be happy. Real true love, it takes it another step, that you want them to be happy even if they're not with you. Why would you want someone to be with you if they're not happy? If they cheated on you, if they left you, they did you a favor. They told you the truth. They're not playing with you anymore and they're not happy and they left. Why would you? So if they did that, then and they're not with you, if you really truly love them, you will say, then, you know, I want them to be happy with this other person. I wish them well. I'm hurt and I'm sad and I'm going to miss them, but I want them to be happy. So it's just this really twisted thing that I see happening where the narcissist left me. Well, but if you're saying they left you and they're a bad person and how they do that to you, that's also narcissism. Because you cannot possess a person.
Right.
You can't own another human being. And nobody owes another person that much to their own detriment, where everyone else comes before they do.
Right.
And if that, it's just, when I see them do that, I'll just say, in my past relationship, my ex came to me, he had become attracted to somebody, was feeling so bad and everything. It was hurtful. I was very, very grateful that he told me the truth. And I told him that, obviously, you're not happy with me. And as much as this hurts me for you to tell this, I want you to be happy.
Right.
Even if it means you're not with me.
Right.
Happiness is more important. Why would I demand that you stay with me when you're not happy? That's not love.
It actually increases the quality.
Yes, it does. And it's honoring it. It allows freedom, not oppression. Right. You owe me, and we got married and you made an oath and blah 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 blah. and it's like, so what? I have shackles on my feet and you own me and I belong to you and you're mine. No, that's the thing. That's not right.
That's the thing about the word possession, which you know, we should go into on your side, on your podcast next. possession, just think about it. When you use that word, you're either talking about property or spiritually. And most people automatically go to that being negative. We're not going to talk about this. Well, maybe we'll cover both sides when we get to your podcast. But most people normally possession, when you talk about people in a physical or spiritual state, is like always a bad thing. Most people resort to that. So now that we got that, with the whole, you brought up a great point in the narcissist and how it's used. And I like how you said, hey, even coming back saying that, you did this and this and went and wanted to be free, that's narcissism in itself. And I'll tell you a story about me. Like, I don't do titles. And I, so you can imagine being a woman, and I sit down and I tell them this in the very beginning, like hour number one of us spending time together, like, yeah, I don't do titles. And they're like, you can tell the ones that want the expectation of, like, they wanted to work on being in that committed relationship, as they call, and they're describing it, whatever that means to them, because it actually means something different to everybody, right, to begin with. So, and I'm like, nah, and you covered everything pretty much. I could go and add some stuff, but basically you gave a real good foundation of why. Because when I talk to them and I say, hey, what do you want the title for, right? What do you want the label for? And if you listen to what I get as an overall equation, right, without the individual variables, is that they want some protection from something. I want them to know that you're mine, which we just talked about with possession, right? I want to know that you'll never leave me. And it's like, well, like you said, well, you got married people that are with other people, and that's why they lead to divorce. So that's not gonna, the title's not gonna protect you from that. So what is it? What are we really arguing about a title for? The only thing that's gonna determine, in my mind, if we're gonna be together tomorrow, is what you do today. You know what I'm saying? So
then there's
let's
that.
focus about the quality of the relationship. Here's what I want to ask. Go ahead. Tell me about that.
And one thing I wanted to say is this is the perfect illustration of why the title narcissism isn't accurate, because you're making it a person. You're turning, it's not a person, it's a behavior. And then what happens is, this narcissist did this to me, and he should be with me, and why did he leave me, and he owes me after everything I've done, and that's narcissism too. So because the title is about pigeonholing people, you don't ever get to have the real conversation, which is what narcissism looks like in your behavior, so that you can address it as a whole. And when you start to pigeonhole and put people in these little boxes, you just never get to the real conversation of the behavior, because a person is not their behavior. It's a thing they choose to behave in that moment. It's not who they are. They can grow and change and get better. But if you're condemning them and making them bad and wrong, and you never really get to address why this person is adhering to this behavior.
There's no healing process allowed.
Yeah, it doesn't ever, you're not having the real conversation. It's just the blame game, projecting, deflecting. When you're actually in that moment doing the same exact thing, you're saying that person is, that they've been doing, and that's why I just go, well, if you're, do you love that person or not? Do you want them to be happy? So and love means you want them to be happy regardless. So it's just that in the blaming, we're not really getting to the root of the problem, the real problem. And that's the behavior, not the title.
I like how you're emphasizing that everybody has the right to happiness, which sounds like we're talking about a Bill of Rights all of a sudden, right? So
now, I love that. Yeah.
What I get to showcase the people that, well, for me it'll be women. Like I can't speak for anybody else. I know you have your boyfriend and I know where y'all are at. So I can't speak for anybody else out there. We know our relationship situations. All right. Now, what I'm getting at is this. I find that when I have the women around me understand, like, not the ones that want to fight the the situation and create contest and argument. That, you know, go ahead. If you want that, go find someone that wants to do that, right? But here's why, here's the benefit of even that's the opposite. Like, oh, he left me. No, I'm like, I'm telling you to leave to go and get somebody else, right? So, and what I learned from that is that it actually increases the quality of life overall. It increases the quality and value of the experience that we share when we are together, because you can have various reasons. Like, maybe I am focused on this career, right? Or this purpose in my life. And I'm like 20 hours a day, like banging out work. And you're like, honey, you know what I mean? Like, you know what? I understand you have wants and needs, like, that may not be the same as me. Like, you may want to go to the movies this week. So find somebody to take you to the movies. I'll be here when you get back.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now you go, check it out real quick. Now you get the experience that you're after, which makes your, like you say, increases and sustains your happiness. And now when you come back, that makes sure, because you're happy and I'm happy, I got what I wanted to get done. Now the time we actually share together is at its highest value and quality as well.
The guy that wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, John Gray, wrote a book called How to Get What You Want and Want What You Have. And he talks about, he has a thing called love tanks, and that you can't get all your love tanks filled by just your partner. And it's
not fair to them.
Too much pressure on them. Yeah.
Exactly.
To meet all of your needs, and how healthy it is to go to other places and have a life. Then you don't lose yourself too, you know? If you're so focused on your romantic relationship to everything else, you lose balance, and it puts all this pressure on both of you. So yeah, I don't want to get too off on that, but I do really
keep going.
It's really important, because it's what you said. If you go to the movies, and with a friend, and your partner goes out with his friends and everything, when you come back, you have something to share, and you get
growth.
Growth. Yeah, you get growth, and it frees up your partner, and you can breathe, and it's just it's really important, because I think that when people don't do that, they become very codependent, and you know, that's when things get really dysfunctional, and resentments come in from that. And so I really related to what you said, and I learned a lot from that book, by the way. I highly recommend it to anybody that's watching. It's a great book. He's just understands these principles we're talking about, and he talks about them in that book a lot. So, but yeah, one thing that you mentioned was the word commitment, and that word, you know, people think you get married and you're done. No, commitment is a daily thing. You got to weed the garden every day. You know, and they just get married and they think, oh, I don't got to do nothing, I'm done now, you know, we're married, and now you just have to, like, be happy.
Right. Like, it's just magic.
Yeah. And it really sets up for unfulfilled expectations too. But that's a whole other, but I felt compelled to bring up that word, commitment, and what it really means.
I'm gonna give you the segue. I'm gonna give you the segue into where you are going, because I know you always be like, I feel like I'm along with it. No, I want you to keep going, but let me give you the segment. Okay, I'll give you the segue, because when you talk about commitment, that's the thing. What are you committed to? And I feel, in the whole example of, you know, how I handle my relationships, as far as, like, you know, intimate relationships like that, for me, I've always been committed to the goal. You know what I mean? The purpose. And what I find is, I'm one of them weirdo, you know, we talked about how we're, for different reasons, we're the minorities here, right? so as far as in our the educational percentage and the labels and all that stuff. We're the weirdos of the society, right? For various reasons. Okay, so now my thing is, who you really gonna find, because you're in this population, let's say 2 or 5%, right? By label, who you really gonna find that shares the same 2 or 5% goals as you? So now that doesn't mean that they're a bad person or anything's wrong with them. It just means that they're not going to help you work to your goal. So now they're not going to be fully committed as you are. Like when you're up working or doing whatever, they're not going to see the value of the time spent. Then that's when you say the arguments come in, because they're going to tell you how poorly you're treating them because you'll never take them nowhere, or you'll never do this or whatever, right? Or not, I mean, it's not that you never do, it's just not enough in their mind at the moment. So here's what I want to get to, right? Because you made a great point. I'm glad you said it. I really like how you articulate concepts. So when you said somebody wanting them to, to do everything for them, what I felt was, if you have someone if you're wanting someone else to fulfill or fill, remember we talk about external and internal a lot. So if you're wanting someone else to fulfill or fill all of your needs, which is, we talk about the pressure that puts on a person, by default, then talk about what responsibility do you have for yourself? What responsibility are you giving yourself for yourself? If you want someone else to fulfill all your needs. Like we just talked about the authority factor earlier. It's the same thing, just put in a different light. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what comes to my mind is, we're not taught when we're little to look within ourselves. We're taught to look outside of ourselves for our sense of self in every way possible. And so when someone isn't, quote unquote, giving us what we feel we need, it disempowers us. Mm-hmm. And it puts us in the, I'm not being loved. Right. But, and this goes back to what we talked about before, where people, you could tell them they don't love themselves and they'll get defensive because they don't even really know what really loving yourself looks like. We have not been taught that. Right. And because we've not been taught that, we're taught to look for it outside of ourselves. And we're taught that if our need isn't being met, that we're not lovable, or there's something wrong with us. And just the whole, again, looking outside of ourselves instead of within. When I was saying in the groups where the people are asking for advice, when the only advice that matters is your own. And it's the same principle, kind of like across the board, and because when we're little, that's what we're taught. We look to others as a reflection of ourselves, and it's inaccurate. It's never going to be accurate because no one can do that but ourselves. We're not taught that.
Exactly.
We're taught that everybody else tells us who and what we are and what our station is in life, what we're deserving of, and everything else. And so when we get into romantic relationships, that gets really exasperated. That really gets, you can very easily blame your partner for things that it's not their fault.
It's not their responsibility. They're not liable for it. Right.
Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, this is good. It's very healthy. It reminds me, right, of something recently. I remember I like to give credit where credit's due. And when you're focusing on empowering people instead of controlling them, right?
Yes.
One of the great things you do is you work with them, you coach them, you help mold them a little bit, and you say, okay, now go ahead and do it. You can fly. You know what I mean? And then you want to sit back and you want to watch them fly, even if they fall a couple times and they get back up and flap their wings and they keep going, they're gonna get it, and then you get to be excited, right? Because you see the growth and you watch their development. So I remember I was saying something that somebody on a post, and they were basically saying how they were going to come back, wanted to come back for, like, let's say more information or whatever, right, from me. And I was like, nah. The loose verbatim was, I think you got it under control, so go help your people, right? Because when you make this investment, like me and you, we make these investments in people, it's not so that we're seen as the authority, like we're talking about. It's not so you give us the label of being superior over anybody else because of the conversation we're having. It's so that you can, so it's an investment in the people so that they can in turn invest in those around them. So that when we're actually empowering people and you administer trust in the situation, you can say, okay, you got it, now go work it, right?
And that word, trust, you administer self-trust.
Hold on, real quick. Let me talk about this. Let me say this real quick.
Okay.
The damaging part ties into what you were saying about the emotional interpretation. They took that as, they actually sent me a text after that saying, hey, you were being smart or funny talking about go help your people and stuff. And so I deleted the post. And I was like, no, I was telling you, I trust you and go do what you got to do. There's no need for you to come back to me anymore. Like for that, you know what I mean? You're not like, I'm not sensei. You know what I'm saying? You got it. Go run with it. Go ahead.
Yes. True leaders develop leaders.
Yes.
True teachers develop teachers. True leaders and true teachers know that we are all students and teachers all at once.
Same time.
All at the same time. And what you said, the word empowerment, that's where I live. I don't believe in spiritual guiders, or I mean, in the sense that if they're doing it and they're making it that they're the knower of all knowing, they're being dishonest, because nobody is the knower of all knowing. It's not possible. And even if you're a knower, then you can only really truly know about yourself. You cannot tell another person about themselves. You can help them find themselves for themselves, but it's not about you. You don't get the credit.
Right.
It's not, look what I did for them. No, that's wrong. If you're saying that, no. It doesn't, it's, hey, I'm happy they found themselves. That's all you have to say. It's not,
and celebrate how far they've come. Celebrate the moment.
And that they did it, because ultimately, even if you do have a guide or whatever, coach and all that, the real credit goes to the person that was willing to show up.
Yes.
For themselves.
Yes. Trish, that's so amazing, because how many people are being discredited right now because they put themselves in a position where maybe someone helped them with something
and then held it over their head later.
Not to say they held it over their head. They held it, like maybe the person didn't hold it over their head, but some of the people around them did. Oh, well, you wouldn't have ever been able to do that if it wasn't for so-and-so. But they don't realize, man, maybe they put you in this position, but you still had to do all the work yourself. You had to still show up, as you like to say.
And that is the key to what we're talking about. Gaslighting. Oh yeah, we talk about that. I mean, I really want to do a podcast on gaslighting.
Let's do it.
And how prevalent it is. And we do it. I find myself doing it. It's so ingrained to dismantle people from the inside out, literally.
So
and
actually, you bring up. Let me give you this, because I want you to run with that thought. So because I had this highlight I was going to ask you earlier, from what you were saying earlier about when you were talking about the narcissist, and then the whole narcissist, the victim of narcissism saying that the person is a narcissist makes them a narcissist too. So what that made me want to ask you, and this will help you run with where you're ready to go and give you some more fuel, is can the label, right, or the title then be used as an attack, like we just kind of hitting on, but I want to go ahead and put the question out there so you can just hit it hard. Used as an attack on the truth, or like I didn't even realize this, or like we just brought up, to discredit a person, right? So can the label now be used now when you create the term and you bring light to the whole label of narcissist? Maybe 20 years ago people weren't talking about it, right? Not everybody knew about it. But now there's been all this money dumped into it, all this attention to bring to light the term of narcissism and narcissists. So now can the label now be used as actual, when wanted, as an actual attack on the truth, or to discredit, or to actually gaslight in itself? It's been weaponized when it's able to be weaponized. Tell me, go into that for us.
This is why labels are dangerous. It's because this is how discrimination in every which way is produced. And once you put a label on them, you dehumanize them, and they're no longer a person with faults and fears and sorrow and bad experiences that led them to that point. It doesn't allow for compassion. It just deems them in the box of bad and wrong, and condemnation, condemning them as this evil person. And then the negative part of it, that's it's even worse, is that it sets you up to be a victim and not accountable for your part in what happened, which is the only part a person can change.
Right.
You can't fix the narcissist. Right. People say, can they be fixed? Can they da, 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 da. They're not the problem here. They're not the problem. If you sit down and you look at your life, you're going to see a pattern. And what's that common denominator in the pattern? And that's yourself. But while you're busy condemning and pigeonholing the narcissist, you don't have to be held accountable for what you've done. The choices that you made that led you to this particular place in your life.
Exactly.
And when you're blaming, you're never going to be free.
Never going to be free.
You're not going to be able to be free because you've given them all the power to make you happy or unhappy and whatever. But if you sit there and you really look at, my gosh, why did I pick this person? Or even, why does this keep happening to me? You will look at your pattern and you go, I keep doing this. What's that about? That's when you're starting to have the real conversation.
Right.
Not the narcissist. It's irrelevant what they do or don't do.
Right.
The question is, how did you end up with them? Why did you end up with them? What is your part? And you will look that there are narcissistic things within yourself as well. Yeah. And so, but when you're making it about a person, you're not talking about the behavior. The behavior never gets addressed, and this is going to happen to you again until you get to the only part you can do anything about, which is yourself. The choices that you make.
Yep.
That led you to where you are. Yeah.
We're only in control of ourselves. You hit that right on the head. And grief, what I was gonna add to that for you is we've said it a few times. Grief, the ability to blame comes from the emotion of grief. Like, you have to be in grief to want to blame others. So, I got a video on the Y97 platform that we totally dove in and did grief, so we could share that maybe. Now, what we've talked about some of the darkness of it now, right? And every coin has two sides. Yes. So let's see how the remedy, right? Not being speaking of the dark side, you brought me on to a good book which I just ordered. I ordered that, and I ordered another book, the light of the pyramid, something well, I'm sure I'll talk about it in the future, so stay tuned for that one. And then your book is The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. So it's kind of interesting that they both got light in there, but I ordered them both together. So there's two sides to every coin. Yes. And we gave a good foundation on some of the dark. We can substitute variables all day with that, but there's also positivity for when you actually remedy yourself from the lie of the label. And there's a lot of great examples of people that's done this in their lives. People that many people look highly to. I know you know some. One that I would bring up was like Sir James Dyson. He spent a year at the Byam Shaw School of Art, and he studied furniture and interior design. So now let's look at it as a positive side. You get out, you get into your interior design world, you're building furniture, whatever it is, and you got people around you saying, hey, you got a good job. Like, don't fuck it up. You know what I mean? Don't want to be more, don't do anything crazy. But later on, he moves into engineering, right? And he goes on to invent the famous Dyson vacuum, which has had many clones and copies and technology. And who knows what else in industry and everything else has spun off from maybe refinement of that technology. So if he never goes beyond the label of being a furniture and interior design student and what that contract and those terms and conditions are supposed to embody in his life, we wouldn't have the Dyson vacuum.
Yeah, if he accepted I'm a furniture maker and that's all that I am, he wouldn't have developed the Dyson from that, because of that. He didn't allow the label to limit him, I guess.
Exactly.
That's what you're getting at? Yeah.
Yeah. Who I know
yeah.
you got people you know too.
Yeah. Well, I think this goes to the topic of duality. And that's why that book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, is really important. The most important element in that book that she talks about is that there are pros and cons to every trait, emotional trait.
Mm-hmm.
And she breaks those down. And she talks about projection, which is the most, it's just so cool. You're just gonna go, wow. It really opened up my mind about titles and when I read that book, I realized something. I hope that it makes sense that I'm going to put this, but I realized I had a judgment about women that dressed in scantily clad. For instance, J-Lo. I thought that she was just a hoochie mama or whatever. And then I realized that I was limiting myself and exploring my sexual side and my exhibitionist side, that I had a judgment about that was imprisoning myself from my full scope of self-expression by seeing that title as just this only this one way. When they're when you think about people like J-Lo and Madonna that came out in the scantily clad, they liberated women to not to be ashamed of their bodies, to express themselves, express their sexuality. And I had this very bad and wrong thing about that. And reading her book made me look at that and go, oh my gosh, I'm because I have not allowed myself to be a hoochie mama or be sexy, I've been stymieing myself, and now I'm judging her and making her bad and wrong for having the courage and bravery to be herself and express every aspect of herself. So man, when I had that awakening, I looked at women so differently, and I started to come out more and wear some sexier clothes and own my sexuality. And wow, it just opened up a lot of doors and freed me from that idea that it's all bad and wrong. It can be used in a way that's abusive, like, balance to everything. You don't want to walk around naked all the time either, I mean, or nearly. I mean, you can, and even if you do that, whatever, it's prerogative. But it's just, my point is, and this is what she talks about in the book, is what you said, two sides of the coin. And if you look at it that way, it really expands your thinking. And it frees you from the limited belief that, being a hoochie mama is bad.
I'm with you.
It's kind of like when people say press, they'll say negative press is good press. To some degree, there's some truth in that. So, it's like when people tell Steven Tyler he sold out when he was later on in his career or whatever, and they say, oh, it just became about money. And he was like, you say that like it's a bad thing. It's not always bad. And it just gets you to look at both sides of that particular. If that answered your question.
No, absolutely. I like the how you use the whole example of women and clothing themselves and how they clothe themselves. Like, it really changes the person, but actually Like, we know we got a lot of stuff centered around gaslighting, emotional health, and everything like that. So, look at how far that actually goes. You got
Yes.
groups of people for various reasons that have and they're not always just religious. Like, so don't think this is about a religious group or anything like that. You got different types of people all over the place that say, hey, women need to be covered up, right? But at the same time, you got groups of people that are like, the human body is an art form, you know? So when is the last time you walked into a museum to see stuff on display or exhibition and they had blankets all over it and you couldn't see nothing? So it's so now let's put those same people. Here's how I like to test the theories with those type of conversations, because the same thing could be said for foods and stuff like that, right? I'm a vegan. I don't eat meat.
Right.
And it's that, okay, cool. I'm glad you feel like that. Because look, if the world was destroyed tomorrow, like, it's not like boom, the planet's gone, but like, let's say shit fucked up tomorrow and we didn't, everything we had was washed away, but we were still here, right? That means we don't have the ability to make clothes. Our clothes is gone. Like, we don't have clothes, right? So now you're trying to survive. So are those same beliefs gonna be priority or as important, that you need to have clothes when there are no clothes to put on, like the emperor's new clothes? Is that same vegan mentality gonna be paramount if all of the vegetation caught fire tomorrow and there was nothing but animals, beef and pigs running around? Would you not eat and starve because you're a vegan
And
in
it
that
comes down
situation?
to judgments and what's the word? Shoulds and shouldn'ts. Judgments, shoulds, and shouldn'ts are forms of gaslighting.
Mm-hmm. Right. To put
You
control over
know,
people.
shutting people down. Yeah. And yeah, uh, this is some deep stuff.
we
Some really deep stuff
This is
that we're
normally
getting
where we
into.
wind up.
But what the powerful thing about that was that I learned that what you don't allow yourself, you're not going to allow other people.
Mm.
What you have a judgment about within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be able to allow anyone else that same freedom, so to
Right.
speak. The hoochie mama, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So anybody else that doesn't do it, they're bad and wrong. And
Right.
what's that about? What is up with that? I don't know. Just it really it just opened up my mind about the duality of things, and where labels, pigeonholing, um, promotes gaslighting and all of that. She gets into that. It's a
It's
very
see,
easy read, but it really gets your mind going about these principles of
gaslighting is at the core
projection.
of everything, huh?
Yeah,
You
it's
keep showcasing
projection.
it.
Yes, it's yes, the gaslighting. Because in my mind, it all comes down to just not being allowed to be real and true with yourself. Um,
And you reinforce that when what you said earlier about how you're this person has something that they want to limit within themselves, so they want to impose on others that they should have the same limits. And that is the work of the lie of the label to begin with, because the labels actually remove us from the infinity and place us within limitations.
exactly.
So the
Like,
remedy is to
oh,
go
sorry, go ahead.
no, that was pretty much it. But I was going to say the remedy is just to always be aware of the infinity of things.
Yes, and it's infinite.
Exactly.
It's really yeah. Oh, I was going to say something, but there's so many variables on this. Oh, I'm part of a group. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of groups because I love just talking and learning and seeing what people are talking about. And never thought about it like that. But anyways, I shared a meme about anger and how anger is the part of you that loves yourself. And it
Mm-hmm.
really triggered a lot of people because so many people are, I'm just going to say the full thing, they're afraid of their anger. You've been taught anger is bad. No,
Right.
it is not. If you come home and you find your babysitter molesting your child, are you not going to be angry?
Right.
There's a time when you should be angry. That's the question. But if you're always telling yourself not to be angry, you're not going to be able to be real with yourself or anyone else. So when people see other people that are angry, oh, that's bad, they shouldn't be angry,
Right.
gaslighting. But they're gaslighting because they're afraid of their own anger. They've been taught to be afraid of their emotions.
And that's
Get the antidepressant. Are you sad or something wrong? No, are you feeling bad? Blah, blah. Here's this little pill to get rid of all your feelings.
the
No,
weaponization.
that's not going to work. Your feeling comes up to let you know it needs to be addressed. And if you don't address it, it's going to come out in an unhealthy way. Whether you say it's bad, wrong, or whatever is relevant. You're not going to be able to get rid of it. And people say control your emotions and all this. I'm like, that's not accurate. It's allow them, work with them. They are a part of you for a reason.
Communication with yourself. That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's a signal.
and it's a signal when you have that anger. You go, oh my gosh, that really triggered me. Like yesterday, I got really triggered. I got really angry. I had to go for a drive. I ended up talking with a really good friend who helped me a lot, and I got grounded again. And
I
that's
like
what
that
you
you use the word
need.
triggered too.
Yeah, triggers are really important. They're vital right now to people's growth. It's everything. I'm following a girl named Lori Ladd. She's very controversial because you want to know why? She's telling people you have to feel it.
You gotta feel it. Or what is
You
it? You
got
got to
to feel
feel
the
it.
emotion. If you don't, you're just going to prolong the process that you're being guided to move towards, and that's yourself, knowing all of yourself. You can't know yourself without allowing yourself to have these emotions. So,
Right.
so many people have big judgments around anger, and a lot of gaslighting going on with
And that
anger.
and that comes down to self-study, like you're saying. And without it, like we were talking about earlier, you go into giving someone else more authority of you than you're giving yourself. Like a point that you were just speaking on, another example of it is the whole people that feel like thou shall not kill. Well, you say that, right? Until someone's breaking in your house at 4 a.m. with your whole family upstairs. What are you going to do then? Oh, gun control, until you got a group of people breaking in your house with guns that you need to protect your family from. Then what? You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, the label, go ahead.
Well, and the thing is, you don't want guns, but you'll call the guys with the guns.
With the guns, right?
And by the time they get there, you're dead. It's a tool. And I can say this because
man.
I'm going to say the really, really, controversial thing here, but the guns are not the problem. Violence of the mind is the problem. I can say this because 2 years ago, my brother was beat to death, strangled, brutally beat to death. So you can get rid of all the guns you want. It's not going to keep people from killing each other. Let's have the real conversation. Why are people killing each other? And then we might actually get somewhere. Removing the guns, their guns didn't come along till what?
Who knows?
A couple hundred years ago, maybe. So before that, people were still killing each other. Poisoning, drowning, strangling, hanging, burning, burying.
It's like in London, they got a knife epidemic. They'll knife you over there. It's from
And there's that stabbing. We talk about all the gun shooting, but we don't talk about the stabbing. How about rape?
choking.
I mean, this is violence in the mind. It's what drives people to do this is what we should be talking about. And look at the guys with the pipe bombs and stuff like that.
So you can make that stuff out of home. Like people people have been killed with a fork. So now
look at 9/11.
Exactly.
9/11. They filled a plane with gasoline and threw it into a building, and there you have it. So
as we sit on the anniversary, the day before the anniversary of, and then there's a whole side that has evidence that shows that there was never any planes and it was a controlled demolition. So the label was applied then. So here we go with a lie. The label could have been used to throw a whole, I'll say could have been, used to throw a whole nation into war over the lie of a label of terrorism. So let's get back onto some positive side. We'll spin back and we jump back into because you can't have one without the other. So we'll keep going in circles. So another good example, right? Because what I really want people to also get is there's millions of Americans, especially with the climate right now and the mandates circulating without saying anything about them, so YouTube doesn't get crazy. But now's the time to think for yourself, right? And as far as what you want to do to be able to provide for your family. So it's even more important now, I think, or let me say, we're at a probably what could be safely an all-time high precedence on pivotal. I like that pivotal moment of being able to go beyond where you're at right now, right? If you have a job, and just because you've been at that job for 20 years and you have fear of, I don't know what else to do in life, or what would I do? And it's scary. It's very scary to say, we walk away from everything I know to go into the unknown. A good example of that is the famous Thomas Edison, raised in the American Midwest, and early in his career, he worked as a telegraph operator. The fact that he worked as a telegraph operator inspired some of his earliest inventions. And then once you have some success, you feel like you can do it and you keep going, you try new things. But what if he was, well, telegraph operating is all I know. I need to stay here and do this. And, look at the effect that would have on the rest of humanity if he never, not to say it would never come about, but look at the effect it would have had. Not to say it wasn't there prior to, because we know we got the Baghdad battery. We know we got evidence that the pyramids could have been wireless power plants and all this stuff. But let's just use history as it's written. Thomas Edison, if he never does that, look at the effect it has on all of humanity because of a label and the fear of going beyond the terms and conditions of the contract.
Thinking outside of the box, but if you really get real, there is no box. The box is an illusion.
The infinity.
There's the limitless possibilities. And the other one is, fear, keeps you focused on the worst possible possibility, when the other one is equally as true.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with the mind, which one you want to focus on. And that's how, you keep people afraid, and they're stymied. They're living in fear, you're stymied. You can't move beyond it. And it starts in the mind. What are you feeding? What thoughts are you feeding?
Exactly.
So,
and
right?
Your Thomas Edison moment was giving the smart girl a chance. And look at how you've now been able to impact the world around you, which means that the people are going to be able to impact the world around them. Speak on how empower the people watching this with us here now. Like I said, that was your Thomas Edison moment. That's why I made sure that I wanted you to go into that deeply in the beginning. So give them the encouragement to find their Thomas Edison moment.
I'm going to bring up my favorite movie of all times, and that movie is It's a Wonderful Life.
Tell us more. For
anyone that's seen that movie, what does the angel? He says to the angel, "I wish I was never born." And the angel says to him, Clarence. His name was Clarence. The angel. Okay, George, you were never born. And so then George saw the horrible things that came because he wasn't there to save his brother. And he wasn't there to help the pharmaceutical guy because he almost gave the wrong medication. He intervened. So many things. That movie, I talked about that movie at my brother's funeral. The power to impact another person's life means everything.
Yes.
It means everything. And like George never thought about it. Like, he's like, George, you just didn't get to see all the good you did just by being you. Now, if you take that into everything else, you expand on how you can impact other people's lives. Can you imagine if people were really mindful of that, the influence that they have on other people, how impactful they could be? It'd be a huge game changer. And that is what that movie is about.
And that's what this conversation has been about. The lie of the label.
By the
Like you
label.
said, the smart girl was already inside of you. The inventor was already inside of Thomas Edison and Sir James Dyson. So you have the power already that the labels given, especially when weaponized, take away from you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. He saw that he was more than just, and it was wonderful because after he comes out of that, it's kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge, where you got to see his life from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming back down to earth and becoming George Bailey again, the town knew that he was in trouble and they all gathered together to help him. And they did, because of who he was, not the title, what he did with his life. He was a man that was ruled by his heart, like his father. And his actions were a reflection of that, and Mr. Potter, the bad guy, tried to put him in a box. So, you don't have any money. Look at your stupid little building and loan business trying to help people. Blah, it's a waste of time. Da 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 da. And it wasn't true.
I like how you said. They came and they supported him, and not the people with the title, so to speak, right? And with that reminds me of the reflection I had is like how today people actually support the title and like we talked about, giving the authority to them,
not the
behavior. So now what that produces is people are swallowing the Pied Piper off the cliff, further condemning themselves, and the person with the real behavior you want, they're not maybe who they would choose to follow or let lead, and that's doing a lot of damage in society as well because of titles and the lie of the label. I have I have letters behind my name.
Yes, I saw someone share a meme. Mothers are the ones that love you more than anyone. You must love your mother. I'm like, not if they're a pedophile and they pass around all these other pedophiles. A mother
and they're
is
beating
not a
the shit out of you every
title.
day and shit.
Or what selling, is a mother?
Or selling you into, yeah, that's deep.
Or an abuser, and I had to set the record straight, and I had to say, no, not if your mother's an abuser.
Or less dark. What if not if your mother just don't support your goals? How about that? Like, people tell me all the time, like, this is how you should view your mother. I was like, my mother destroyed me when I was younger mentally. Like, you'll never be shit. You go to school and you're whatever you're praised, but then like, your mother's telling you she can't wait for you to get out when you're 12 because you ain't never gonna be shit, and all the ways she could reinforce that shit. Why would you want to go back to that ever once you get free? Why would you want to bring your next generation, like your sons or daughters, to be put in that environment to have the same thing done to them? Like, people.
And what you're doing is breaking the generational curse, because you can bet that was what your mother was told by her mother or father,
most
and
likely.
so on and so on and so on, and the generational curse just gets passed down. But yes, back to the point of, and that's what I put on my page. Mother is not a title, it's a behavior.
Yes,
it's an action. It's what you do that makes you a mother. my stepfather took on 5 kids that weren't even his and did many, many things my dad was not around to do.
Right.
He took on the father role. And in some ways, he was more of a father to me than my own father. Now, I don't say that out of condemnation. You can't know what you don't know till you know. People make mistakes. So it's not about bad and wrong.
Mhm.
It's about behaviors that allows these things to continue because of the titles.
And the same way we were covering in our a video or two ago, that Steve Jobs, you know, if he had been influenced or let the label mold him into you're only supposed to be a family man, then we wouldn't have Apple the way it was today, I'm sure. So, what I brought that up to say, a reflection for myself, because sometimes people are struggling, they're fighting to be in a family role when the reason why they're, like you were talking about earlier, like you have to let the people go and be happy. So this is an example of what happens when the people don't realize that if they leave, they would be happy and do great things, and they're so busy trying to be a positive, what's seen as a positive label for whatever reason, that they're hanging on, they're fighting to hang in, and remain in there, right? And that's not the reason why all that tension and stuff is, in the grand scheme of perfection of things, is even there to begin with, is so they would leave to go and become the greatness that they're supposed to be. But they're fighting to hang on because of what someone told them the label was. Well, you're supposed to be this because you're the father or you're the mother. You need to stay here and be this and do. Right? There's two sides. That's why I really like talking to you, because we can address the full infinity.
Yes. Then there's also that, once you're a parent, you disappear. My parents aren't allowed to have a life, and that
Right.
to just do everything for their children. That's not healthy, and it develops resentment to the children. Balance. So, no matter what we're talking about here, at the core of everything is selfhood. And you can't, if you give to your children that which you don't have, you're going to be resentful. If everyone's telling you just have to give up everything, all your time, all your energy, and everything just to your kids, not only you're doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing your children a disservice, because you're teaching them that same thing. It's
Right.
not true. Moms are allowed to have a life. Dads are allowed to have a life outside of having their children. That's why it's been so hard rearing children, because as soon as you do, you disappear.
Right.
And that's not fair.
I think
Like I look at my dad, and he had 7 children. All he did was work his whole life. The only thing he had was music to keep him going. Sorry.
I can totally relate to that in my own way. I remember being young, and you hear your mother say, I'm sure a lot of people can have been in a situation where their mother, father, whatever says they, I can't have anything because I got to take care of my family, and everything goes to my family, and I sacrifice for my family, or I sacrifice this for this. And it's like, I remember being young, like we're talking sub 10 years old, and being like, I couldn't understand why my mother was using the word sacrifice. I mean, me, I actually knew what that meant by definition at that time. That's why I said it's hard having a third grader that's like an attorney. But I was like, mother, you should never sacrifice. What that's saying is you're seeing hindrance on being able to go out and get more. But in reality, mother didn't understand that, well, you're just comfortable and complacent at your job, and you just don't, you've to the point where you don't want to do anything else to be able to provide anything more for yourself and still maintain what you want to do for us. But then now what you're saying is the label is having the mother now blame the son or daughter by default of the conversation, because what they're really telling the kids is that because of you, I can't have shit. Like, how fucked up is that mentally to say, you're the what am I looking for here? What I want to say?
You're
Like,
the
you're the
epitome
problem.
of my suffering. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
and that's because
you're the cause of my suffering. God.
you're the cause of my suffering. I have a friend who was telling me a story. She's gone through a very troubled divorce and everything. And, you know, the ex is very controlling, demanding, abusive, and everything else. The children have seen this behavior and learned some of these traits. So anyways, I'm getting so far. Her
No,
daughter
take your time.
calls her. Her daughter calls her and says, you know, Mom, I don't want to be with Dad. I want you to come and get me right now. And she's like, I have plans, because it was his time with the children. And she's like, you're my mom. You're supposed to drop everything that you did. No, that is not true. The arrangements I made with your father was he gets you guys this many days, and then I have time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
This is my time. And the child is saying, well, you owe me and you have to give that up. No, that is inaccurate.
Right.
And that's what creates when people tell you that. So a lot of people will tell you, well, you need to give that up. You should be stopping everything you're doing for your child. No, first of all, it spoils your child and
Yes.
leads them down the path of entitlement issues. Children need to know it's okay for the parent to have a life and have things that, like we were talking about, romantic relationships, the same dynamic.
Right.
And that then what happens is your children are controlling you, and they grow up to be controllers too. So
Ooh.
keep that cycle going
Right.
of ownership and you owe me mentality
Mm-hmm.
that is inaccurate and not true. And if you have to sacrifice something, that's just not a good model.
Exactly.
That's not even a good wording.
Yes.
You know, because if you are, what's going to come with that is resentment, undoubtedly.
On all
If
on all
not right
sides.
away down the line, you will be resentful. Because of you, I missed out. No, because of you, because you weren't taught that you're allowed to have boundaries even with your children, and that you're allowed to have a life and time for yourself to rejuvenate yourself and get back to you for a while, so that you have something to give to your children. But if you're never allowed to do that, you're going to be very resentful of your children. Even if you don't verbalize it, they're going to pick up on that. It's going to happen. And it also teaches the children that that's what it is to be a parent, and that's what it is to be in a relationship. You owe me, and you have to do this to make me happy, instead of learning to fulfill yourself and make yourself happy.
So the label creates a contract that produces by default terms and conditions, which is why
sacrifice.
That person wants the next person to sign the same contract as well.
Yes.
And I like how you put it as break the generational curse.
Yes. It's what's been taught.
Expand on what that means to you. Because I know you told me, and you have a great definition of that I would like for you to share with the people.
Of a definition of
breaking the generational curse.
Well, just
in its
that
infinity.
It's a pattern. It's you know, it goes back to where we started in the beginning, this idea that you are what others tell you about yourself. And it starts with your children, and then you go to school, and then you go to work, and your social constructs. And when that happens, you are trained to look outside of yourself or your sense of yourself in every way, shape, or form. And then you will raise children with that same idea. It just has been a toxic, abusive cycle of gaslighting, and you know what I mean? Like, how can I think we talked about this before, and I've shared it in other videos, but it just blew my mind. It was so empowering. It goes, and it just kind of culminates and brings us all together. It's the story about the woman that had this 3-year-old little boy that was playing with the kids, and he got really angry. And the mom, instead of gaslighting him and treating him like he was bothering her by coming and being emotional and expressing his anger and feelings, normally say, you just need to calm down, and you're too emotional, you're a problem child, or whatever label they put on you and whatever. She did not do that. I cried when I first saw it. And anyways, she said, oh, you're upset with them. And she talked him through, what are you upset about? Okay, What do we do when we're angry? We count to 10. And she just not trained him, but, coached him through this process, how to manage his emotions, understand what they are, where they're coming from, and honor them. And so she went through the whole process and everything. And when she was done, she said, do you feel better? Yeah, I feel better. He's like 3 years old.
Right.
And she said, do you think you can go out and play now? Yeah. Oh,
It's all better. You ready to go back to it?
allowing, not making his emotions bad and wrong and stuffing or making them an inconvenience to her.
Mhm.
She allowed him to have a voice, to understand himself and his emotions, and that they're perfectly normal and okay, and how to manage them, not control them, work with them and understand them and work through them and validate them and allow them, and so that he can be his true self and say how he feels at all times.
That really reminds me of the video on your podcast with your brother. And he was saying, hey, you get to the point where whatever happens, you meet this new chick, and you go out and you're like, should I call her? Should I text her? And then he was saying how you talk to the woman friend that you have that hasn't had how you say it, basically hasn't had been in a relationship for like 6 years, and they're gonna say, don't waste any time, do it right now. But then you go talk to this group of people over here, and they're gonna say, nah, play it cool. Don't do this for 5 days. Give her 5 days or whatever, right? And what that showcases is like the lie of the label based on the source's emotional position or disposition. And I think that ties into what you were saying there, by that youth, that 3-year-old being able to walk through the process and be who they naturally are and come and talk it out. They were able to return to being happy and enjoying the moment. So speak on now how, with that example, elaborate on that conversation with you and your brother. And, if you're watching this, by all means, go over to School of the Hard Knock Life. You know what I mean? And conversations from the School of Hard Knock Life. I'll put the link up and check that out. Can you expand on that for us? Because that's something like people go through, and it's not dark, it's not light, but it's really dumb when you look at it, right? I mean, it's really retarded, so to speak, how it could be holding a lot of stuff back. Good and bad.
I saw a meme that really just kind of encompasses this whole thing. It's like, say how you feel. It's not being troublesome, it's being real. Mm-hmm. It's like, Keanu Reeves has a quote that I love too, that I share the meme from time to time. And he's like, and it goes back to what I was saying about the people in the narcissist recovery group. So why are you mad when someone rejected you? When they're doing you a favor by not playing you. They're being straight up and honest. They're not wasting your time. Life is too short. And this is what Anthony and I talk about. It's too short. He wants to have kids. He's approaching 40. He doesn't have time to mess around. And if you do appear needy by calling too soon, then you don't want that person. You don't want anything that doesn't want you. Why would you chase it?
Right.
If it's not natural and you don't have that natural connection, you've saved each other time by being straight up from the get-go. We're not taught that. We're taught to, beat around the bush, play these games, and put on these bravados. I tell people don't date, because that's what happens. All these people, they have the right face on, they got the right vibrato going. Then they move in together and then, oh my God, I had no idea who this person really was, Mm-hmm. And then you're moved in and you've made all kinds of contracts at that point. Just get to cut to the chase, be real. There's nothing wrong with saying how you feel. And that's what that woman was teaching that little boy. There's nothing wrong with your feelings. There's nothing wrong with talk about them. Let's talk about them. Okay, cool. All right. We're good now. Mm-hmm. And it just moved me to tears to see that. I thought, wow, mm-hmm. this is where the change is going to come from in our society of allowing. If something comes up and you feel something, like I was said in my post the other day, we constantly have people telling you, don't let that bother you. Gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't ask why it's bothering you, you're never going to get to the why it's bothering you and address it and move on. It's gonna keep happening. It's gonna address it. So it's constantly the gaslighting that doesn't address what's happening. So if you do allow yourself to ask yourself, you know, this is bothering me, why? Generally, you're going to find you need to make a change in your life. And
You're absolutely
you know,
right. You're absolutely right. A change need to be made, and I think based on what we were just given as an example, is when you meet someone and you're out, in those early, if you're a dater and you're dating, whatever it is for that person, I'm with you. I don't date. Like I said, I don't even do titles. But what it is, we either is or we ain't. Well, here's what I do. To show you, because for my mind, my question is, and this is not, your brother made a good point on a general level. Like this, this is what the world is fighting with. Like, do I call her? Do I not call her? And she's like you said, oh, you called too soon, you're needy, and all this bullshit, right? But my thing is, the only reason any of that exists to begin with is, why didn't we use that first point of contact to talk about what the expectations are and the wants are with each other and where they're at? Which is why I sit the people down, the women that I meet in the beginning, and say, okay, I know I'm a weirdo, so let me give you the list right now so you can know what to expect. Because what I found is, certain people like us, we're informative. So it don't matter if we're wanting to research the truth about, history, the truth about gaslighting, the truth about narcissism, or the truth about the person sitting across the table from us when we're eating at our first, what you call, date. We want to get to the point. We want to get to the truth. So, however, because society is so conditioned to be afraid of that, I know that I'm going to study them like every second, just so I get the understanding of who they are, but they may not do the same for me. So that's why I actually give them my terms and agreement, the terms and conditions of the contract of who I wrote for myself, so they can review it with their legal department and decide if it's something they want to proceed with. And I think what that showcases, I want to get your opinion on this, and I know you don't use opinion, you speak from truth. But I want to open the floor up for you with this. I think what we're proving here with this conversation today on the lie of the label is, the world has been conditioned to value not knowing what they want for themselves. And like you said earlier, that leads us into the remedy, is go within and, basically find who you really are and give the smart girl a chance, or give the Thomas Edison in you a chance. What do you have to say about that?
one thing, if I just wanted to go back, that when we go back and we talk about dating, I tell people, don't date, go out, make friends. You're going to learn a lot more about that person's character because the guard is down. You're going to be able to be yourself,
Right.
Just go out and make friends, go places, hang out, platonic, without all the emotional coloring as well. And you'll be able to see if you have an actual real connection with that person. I saw a really cool thing in an Oprah Winfrey magazine where the therapist was telling people, go out and do more things that are you. Like, if you love bike riding, go bike riding. And you'll meet other people that like bike riding that you already have something in common with. But what you're after is getting to know this person, not hurry up, let's get the ring, get married, and have the children before you even know anything about this person, really. Your goal is just to get married. All those expectations really set you up for failure. But when you go into hanging out, making friends, and you have an open mind, you're going to be able to save yourself a lot of time and trouble, and you'll enjoy it a lot more. Who wants to go to a restaurant and eat salad in front of a stranger and hope you don't spill food on yourself, and all the nerves and, oh, should I say this? Should I not do this? That's just like not fun.
Right.
Not enjoyable.
Be yourself.
Awkward. Yeah. If you can't be yourself, you're not going to have a good time anyway. So dating doesn't really, dating says you have to go find a mate. And that's your goal.
Right.
Instead of go meet people, connect with people, find out, more about yourself as you're meeting more people too, as well. It's just, again, the title of looking for a mate and what that really is. And
you said a lot right there.
it just,
you said a lot. Let me tell you how much you said. Excuse me. You said focuses on find a mate. And immediately in my mind, because we talked about this, but let me condense it. Finding a mate versus finding a purpose. See, when you go look for a mate, now you got all this you got this infinity of choices.
Expectations too.
Right. When you find your purpose, it narrows the choices down, because when you focus on your purpose, you're only going to have a select few to choose from that's there in your face, in your space, when you're on your purpose. And it kind of, not to say you won't have to choose from, but it greatly reduces the population of the selection to begin with.
Now, here's a real thing that I'll say on this. You don't find a mate to attract one. And somebody said something to me years ago that was so profound. He said, that if you want to find Mr. Right, you first have to be Mrs. Right. When you are Mrs. Right, Mr. Right will see you.
Yes.
The real you.
The real you.
Not this false bravado thing that you're trying to be that you're not. You're only setting yourself up to disappoint that person.
And yourself.
Trying to be what you think they're looking for and whatever. And half the time they're doing the same thing with you. And then you just have two people that are lost.
Two people that don't know who each other are and don't know who they're looking at to begin with. How's that going to work?
How's that going to work? It's going to lead you to, oh my God, years of trouble.
If you get that far.
If you get that far. So what he said, if you want to meet Mr. Right, you first have to be Mrs. Right. You have to be yourself. Then that someone will see you and go, oh, wow, I really like her. And it's not a bravado. It's actually you're really being true to yourself.
To build upon that, I like to cover the full. We both like to cover the full scope. So to build off of that, that also is what presents. That in itself is what presents the opportunity for the hackers. I need to write that down. The hackers. I'm gonna call it the hackers, because what they're doing is they know this stuff, right? Relationship hackers. They know this stuff, right? And like you're saying, when you appear, let's add this word, appear to be Mr. or Mrs. Right, you'll attract the Mr. or Mrs. Right, right? So you got the relationship hackers that know how to be the wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak, right? To attract the sheep and then prey upon them. You see? So that's definitely is what's at the root of all that evil. I like what you said earlier too, to kind of build off that, and then I want to hear what you think about it, if you don't mind. You said when watching or get people when they have their guard down, right, to see who they really are, and go out and make friends, and that's a natural compatibility test, right? And I have people, I have a few women that get mad because I'll be like, yeah, I have to conduct an experiment. Like I'm telling you, my first day you meet me, ladies, women, it's gonna be very interesting if we're sitting down for that and not like business focused. Like you meet me and it's like, hey, it's like, hey, look, let's holler. But because I'll be like, yo, I'm conducting an experiment, right? I got to do the experimentation, because in experimentation, it's how you find knowledge, right? And part of experimenting is observation. You need to observe the inputs and outputs of your experiment. So what I do is I tell, and I think a lot of things is honor and honesty, and that's where the deceit part comes in. That's the real problem. People are weaponized; they're using the deceit, and that's when they're in dishonor with themselves and the whole spinoffs. But here's what it is. So I tell people up front again, so there's no surprises. I tell her up front, like, look, I'm going to study you for at least next, whatever, and that shocks people. It shocks them to begin with. But here's what I'm getting at: if you ask a person a question, you give them the opportunity to appear to be whatever they want in the answer. However, if you create the condition or circumstance and see what they do, like you said, naturally, you are observing their truths, their truth. And that's
Yes.
how to me, I run and conduct the natural compatibility test to see what they do. Instead of asking a question, just see what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like years ago, I got hired to recruit for the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I was a night manager years ago. And they said, we're opening up this store. We want you to be the night manager, and we want you to go ahead and recruit a crew for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I would go to local like-minded businesses, donut shops and whatnot, and watch certain people, the managers and workers. And I would just watch them unbeknownst, without them even knowing. Then the ones that I felt I could see they had a good work ethic without them knowing that I was observing them, then I gave them my card. Hey, we're opening up a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Would you like an opportunity to come and work for us? But I didn't just go to anyone. I went and I observed. I took time and watched. And some of these people are still working for the Coffee Bean. It's actually kind of funny. But it's that same principle. That makes, yeah. It's,
People
when you're
don't,
not dating, they don't like, when you're not dating, you can just survey the land. You can survey your options and whatnot from a place of observation, and then you can make a really educated decision.
I think what you're saying in my translation, which is profound, is you're not looking to fill the title. You're looking for who the title fills.
Yeah, who is this person? How do they operate? How do they treat their family members? How do they carry themselves? What's important to them? What are their values? And you'll be watching that person and learning that without even ever having to ask them a thing. But if you're dating, it's so awkward and you're on the spot that you say the wrong thing, heaven forbid. You know what I mean? It's not, it puts too much pressure that it has to be this and you have to have a soulmate. That it leaves you and then there's also that belief that something's missing from you that you don't already have. And yeah, so I can't help it. I always dig deep and see all the tentacles and veer off into different areas. But
I like the octopus in research. That's how we find the truth answers, not just the things that we're going to throw band-aids on and wonder why the ship is still sinking next week. So I think we got a lot of stuff that we can build upon. I think a lot of good information has come out of this for people to heal from or with, and share with those that need healing. Let's follow up and do the video on possession and go further on that. And I'm sure by the time we get there, we'll have a couple other topics to review to put on display. Do you have anything that you would want to add? And I know we're gonna put the link up so that people can come to Conversations of the School of Hard Knocks and by Trish McCabe. So do you have any closing remarks you want to put on the table for our guest viewers today?
I really don't. I will say that if you ever have any questions, please feel free to message me if you have questions about something that I said or whatever. I'm happy to expound. I think what we talked about today is profound, and I am shocked that I'm actually found somebody I can talk with this about to this degree that we do. And so yeah, no, I'm just thrilled to be here, and I'm looking forward to continuing to talk about this stuff. And I'm just grateful. Thank you so much. I mean, there are no words. You really, in fact, I don't know if you saw my page, but one of my friends who's been following my podcast just said, "Oh my God, you guys really work well together and keep going." So, yeah.
It's always the perfect day, Trish.
Yes, yay.
It's I'm really I'm equally as grateful and much gratitude. What we're doing is for the people, you know. So when the world needs something, the world creates its remedy, which is what we're talking about here today. So it brought us together. The world brought us together, put us in this position. All of our experiences, different as they are, that we've been through, timing of life, everything, put us in this moment right now to do this, not for ourselves, not to be looked at as on a pedestal, but to
Standing on a
invest,
podium.
but to invest in others so that they can invest in the rest of the world. And that's why we do this. And I'm grateful to have you as well. So I do appreciate it. Why that 7?
Why
Tune
not
in.
7? Woohoo! Yes,
I'm gonna have
I'll
links.
be sharing this.
Awesome. I'm gonna have links. School of the Heart Conversations, School of the Hard Knocks, Trish McCabe, YN7, Pasha Paroh. Thank you for tuning. Say bye. Oh, you're over here. Say bye, Trish.
Bye. Till next time.
And right, till next time.